Imagine watching a tense football game. The clock is running down, the crowd is roaring, and the offense is just a few yards from the end zone. The quarterback snaps the ball, dodges defenders, and sprints across the goal line. The referee throws both arms into the air and announces the play that every team dreams of: touchdown. It's the most exciting moment in American football, worth 6 points and often the difference between victory and defeat. But if you stop and think about it for a moment, the name itself seems a little strange. Why exactly is it called a touchdown? Players don't actually have to touch the ball down on the ground to score. They simply have to cross the goal line while holding the ball. So where did this curious term come from? To understand the answer, we have to travel back to the early history of football and the sports that influenced it. Let's explore right here on History of Simple Things. The story of the touchdown begins in the 19th century, when American football was still evolving and looked very different from the game we know today. In fact, early football was heavily influenced by two older sports from Britain: soccer and rugby. Colleges in the United States were experimenting with their own variations of these games, creating a hybrid that slowly developed into modern American football. One of the key influences was rugby, which already had a concept similar to what we now call a touchdown. In rugby, scoring originally required a player to physically press the ball down onto the ground behind the opponent's goal line. This act was known as touching the ball down, which allowed the team to attempt a kick at goal for points. The touch in rugby was very literal. You had to touch the ball to the ground. As American football began to separate itself from rugby in the late 1800s, many of rugby's ideas and terms carried over. Early versions of the game still required players to actually touch the ball to the ground in the end zone to complete a scoring play. This action was known as a touchdown, just like in rugby. Back then, the touchdown itself wasn't even the main way to score. Instead, it mainly earned the team a chance to kick the ball through the goalposts for additional points. In other words, the touchdown was originally more like a setup for the real scoring opportunity rather than the main event. Over time, the rules of American football began to change dramatically. Influential figures such as Walter Camp, often called the father of American football, helped shape the modern version of the sport in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Camp introduced several key innovations, including the line of scrimmage, the system of downs, and standardized scoring rules. As these changes took hold, the touchdown gradually became more valuable. Instead of simply earning a chance to kick for points, the touchdown itself began to award points directly. At the same time, the physical requirement to touch the ball down on the ground slowly disappeared. The rules evolved so that a player only needed to possess the ball while crossing the opponent's goal line. As long as the ball broke the plane of the goal line while under the control of an offensive player, the play counted as a touchdown. The act of actually touching the ball to the ground was no longer necessary. Despite this major change in gameplay, the original name remained. The sport had already adopted the term touchdown, and by then it had become deeply ingrained in the language of football. This is a great example of how sports terminology often preserves pieces of history. Even when the rules change, the old names sometimes stick around as reminders of how the game used to be played. The word touchdown is essentially a linguistic fossil from football's rugby-inspired origins. It reflects a time when scoring required a literal touch of the ball on the ground. Today, the touchdown is the centerpiece of American football scoring. Each one is worth 6 points, followed by the opportunity for an extra point kick or a two-point conversion attempt. Touchdowns can happen in several ways. A player can run the ball into the end zone, catch a pass there, recover a fumble, or even intercept a pass and return it all the way. Regardless of how it happens, the moment is always electrifying. Fans jump to their feet, announcers raise their voices, and the stadium erupts in celebration. The phrase itself has also become one of the most recognizable words in sports. Even people who rarely watch football understand that a touchdown means something big has happened. The term has even spread into everyday language as a metaphor for success. Someone might say a business deal was a touchdown, or that a big idea scored a touchdown, meaning it achieved a major victory. Interestingly, American football isn't the only sport that preserved historical terminology. Many sports have words that made perfect sense under old rules, but seem slightly odd today. Baseball, for example, still uses phrases that originated in much earlier forms of bat and ball games. But football's touchdown might be one of the most striking examples, because the literal meaning of the word no longer matches what players actually do on the field. In the end, the name touchdown is a small but fascinating window into the history of the game. It connects modern stadiums filled with roaring fans to the muddy college fields of the 1800s, where early players were still figuring out how football should be played. The rules evolved, the strategies changed, and the sport grew into a massive global spectacle, yet the name remained the same. So the next time you see a player sprint into the end zone and spike the ball in celebration, remember that the word touchdown comes from a time when scoring meant literally touching the ball to the ground. It's a reminder that even the most modern sports carry echoes of their past hidden in the language we use every game day. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.